welcome back to Black Ribbon Warrior, where we are discussing our journey through stage 4 metastatic melanoma cancer. Why did I say it like that? Because I was trying to make sure I said it all correctly, because that was a mouthful. So, I'm joined with my lovely bride,
Hello.
Mama.
Hello, dear.
So, what a week. Kind of nonchalant now that we're like what is it, week 3, 4, starting week 4 of surveillance mode.
Yeah, no doctors. We don't go back until March.
Yep. Going to the primary doctor this week.
And I messed it all up. I didn't give you the right stuff. I'm sorry.
Going to the primary doctor this week. I haven't seen her since April. I was supposed to see her back in like July, but because the oncologist wanted to go to one of his uh, people to check the diabetes status of still type 2, or did it migrate into type 1, or are we somewhere in between? And that lady gave me the thumbs up on still type 2. So I guess that's a high five.
Well, I think when we were supposed to go see your primary doctor, we were seeing a mix of all the other specialties. Like we were seeing endocrinology, we were seeing rheumatology, we were seeing cardiac, we were seeing dermatology, like all within 2 weeks of each other. That it was pointless to go to her for her to run all of the same tests that they were already running.
Right, and my A1C at that point, I believe, was like a 6.1, 6.1, 6.4. I have to look.
Something like that. I mean, so the idea of just as a caregiver, because that's kind of what I am, as well as somebody who is in this field somewhat, there were too many hands, too many people cooking in this kitchen that I felt better going with. I felt better going with who your oncology wanted to go with because I really still, I just harbor some ill feelings about the whole primary doctor. I love her. That's not the issue. I think she's fabulous.
I think some of her staff dropped the ball, and even with this appointment this week, running into uh, miscommunication issues. So
Yeah, so I think
I don't. It wasn't the doctors. I think it's the people under.
the people who make everything else work,
Yep.
I think that's the issue. And I think, knowing, and you know that I have felt this way, that I'm like, okay, if we would have got the right information on this lymph node back in December of 2020, could would we have stopped the tumor in the brain? I don't know, maybe. And it's not for me to decide that, but it is kind of like there are other things other than COVID, but that's all anyone was talking about. So that's all this could be. Only to find out this was way not COVID, not even related to COVID, not on the same page as COVID. And that mistake threatened my family unit.
But
And
I
I
don't
don't think it would have changed anything necessarily, but it threatened my family unit, and it's
I,
kind of hard.
I don't think it. I think it worked out the way it was supposed to.
It did, but
And
on the same breath, it's hard.
so I just pulled up my chart thing on my phone, and the A1C back in August was a 6.8.
Yeah, because we were shocked. We thought it was going to be 7 or 8.
Yep.
We thought it was going to be bad.
Because I've been having, at this point, I've been having some higher blood sugar numbers, and I'm still trying to eat low carbish, somewhat keto, trying to get rid of the white starches and stuff due to inflammation.
And
Um,
unfortunately, those are all of my comfort foods. and that has not helped me this year.
Right. And finding things that work in the midst of all this was rough.
It's still rough. It's still challenging to figure it all out.
And then when we hit the holidays, holy cow! I'll be doing good if my A1C here next week is under a 9.
Oh, stop. It's going to be good.
It was.
It's going to be good.
So we'll give you the update on that next week.
Yeah.
So let's jump into, where do you want to start this time? Because we ended off with us going to or after surgery.
After surgery, we were going to go home. You know, I remember this time in the sense of our house was busy. I wasn't working. You weren't working. But people were calling and people were stopping by, and which I'm thankful for, and I've always been thankful for. And I don't really know the sequence of how all of that happened. You know, I do know this. I was sitting at a client's house, one of my very favorite clients, and the mom knew everything we were going through. She knew. And you know, we had that relationship that I had been there for 4 years, at least 2 times a week. And so I knew what their family was going through, and they knew what we were going through. And this day, we had another member of the team, the orthotic guy. He was there. And this mom asked me, said, okay, well, I want to make you guys dinner. What day do you want dinner? Don't tell me you're not going to take it. I'm going to make it. You're going to have it. What do you want? And she has done this before in other trials for us. And so I told her, you know, my kids really like that taco meal you bring. And she said, absolutely. And the orthotic guy said, well, how do I get a taco meal? And we both looked at each other and we kind of laughed. And we said, you don't want to do what you have to do to get a taco meal. And that was the day before your surgery. So I remember telling her, hey, please not this week, because somebody had set up a meal train.
Yeah, so we did have a family that we were close with reach out, and the one lady and her sister set up a meal train, and people were signing up for that, and that was amazing.
We had a couple weeks there. We had people calling us. Family was calling us. I know my sister ordered us groceries. She said, "Can you just go pick up the groceries? They're waiting for you."
And that was really awesome, because you know, like, they just went and picked up these bags of groceries, and it was all the stuff the kids would really like.
Yeah, my sister hit it on the nail. She knows our kids that well to know what their comfort foods are and what I would have time to make. And knowing that the girls will cook, but they were also in swim season, that they needed fast kind of meals also. So they made a grocery list, and we picked that up. And you know, we had people from our church group came over, and they prayed with us, and they prayed with you and for us. And honestly, I cannot to this day remember if that was prior to or after the surgery. I feel like it was before the surgery, but I don't know.
It's all kind of a blur for me.
I do know after the surgery, and they were all checking in, a very special couple from that group, they called and said, I know we just met, but we would like to bring you dinner Friday. And this was probably a week after your surgery. And I said, oh, okay. Again, I'm not good with asking for help. It made me feel kind of vulnerable to have people asking me what we needed. Like I said last week, we didn't know what we needed because we've never done this before.
Like, the idea of giving food when somebody's, you know, going through some tough times is, I mean, that's stuff we've always done.
It's stuff we do.
You drop off casseroles, lasagnas, desserts. You know, you kind of knock on the door, you drop it off, here you go. And we had, you know, a couple groups that would come in and chit chat for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm like out of it, so I'm like, ugh. But and that was kind of nice. And then you got to talk to them and stuff. And then we had um, our I would call them Texas family now
Yeah, I think we can call them our Texas family.
because they've since moved to Texas. But they they would come in and they would just knock on the door, or they would send a text, "Hey, it's on the doorstep." Or they would knock on the door, and unless they needed help carrying stuff in. Of course, I wasn't allowed to touch anything, but they would come in and set it on the table. And their idea of a meal was a meal that lasted all weekend.
Well, they said their goal was that we did not have to worry about food all weekend long.
And the kind of short story behind that was he'd been through that before and knew the blessing that it was for his situation when somebody did that for them. And so he was paying it forward. And
Yeah, and they paid it forward. They After that first night, and they called and they're like, "What kind of food do you want?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know." Mm. So I said, you just pick us out anything. We're just thankful and we're so grateful. And so they brought us food. I feel like it was Italian. I feel like they got us pizza. That was the first time they got us pizza and um, Alfredo, which became Peyton's favorite.
mm-hmm.
Um, but they got us like 6 or 8 family meals and 2 pizzas and a whole thing of breadsticks and salads and desserts and the whole shebang.
And I kind of laughed because I remember that they would tell us that they were living vicariously through us,
Mm-hmm.
so they would get us whatever sounded good to
Yeah.
them.
Because
But then they would go eat somewhere else and eat
this
healthy.
ended up being after that first drop off, and I said, "Oh my goodness, thank you so very much. I didn't expect all of that." They said, "We've made a decision," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Again, okay. I don't know how to respond. Remember, we didn't know them well.
Yeah.
We didn't know them well at all. And she said, "We're going to do this every Friday if you'll let us." And that became the beginning of our every Friday. And we talked on that porch. They checked about you. They checked about me. He constantly said, "What have you done for you?" And I said, "Oh, I've been doing this for Lee." He goes, "But what did you do for you? You have to fill up your gas tank first." And I'm like, "Oh,
And
okay."
and we would see these people every Sunday night at our church group.
Yeah, I mean, we took some time off just
Yeah.
because you couldn't, but
As I got feeling better, and when we'd seen them, um, pretty much from like the going through the diagnosis
well, yeah,
up to this point, we'd only really got to know them on Sunday nights with the other group, and then we've really this group for me, it's been a huge life changer. It's so important to get yourself around positive people that have not only your genuine health at mind, but spiritually, and they want the best for you all the way around,
right.
and not just the best for you today, or well, that's good for you next week, and then you know
Yeah.
kind of
So,
go on.
I just think we were super lucky, and I think that we had to just, in our way, thank those people who did bring food, brought supplies, brought
And we had
stuff. I mean, I had clients of mine, long-standing clients, show up at our door with hand soap and Lysol wipes because they knew that I was really concerned about germs in the house because one, we were still in COVID land. You were just back from the hospital. You just had brain surgery. You have cancer. Your system has been run down. The last thing I needed was anyone to get sick.
and the one lady went shopping with her kids,
Yes.
and so the kids were throwing in stuff, and they brought this huge box
Mhm.
full of just like
Snacks.
snacks and whatever that her kids thought our kids would like.
Yeah, and I mean that was another just long-standing client that I'd had for 4 years. So I got a cough. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I think I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that without that support, because again, I'm like I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. I didn't I didn't want to leave you.
Which leads me into the next one that I wanted to get into was so the girls and I have been running a YouTube channel, going on 5 years next month. Next month will be the 5 year anniversary, and I had met a fella uh, through cast iron of all things on YouTube, and we've kind of talked and became friends. And when this diagnosis came up, I had called him and one Sunday morning, and we talked for hour and a half, and good old Arkansas boy, and man, that what he ended up doing, I had no idea.
And this was after surgery.
Yeah,
Because I remember coming home. This was after surgery, and my sister was here, I think.
and he was running on his YouTube channel. He would interview different channels, talking about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and whatever. And getting some lesser channels known, but they had put up like a fundraiser for us, and I was my stuff was all over the banner, and they reached said a little prayer, and they raised money, and there was another channel that caught on too, and to what was going on, and he did one too, and they ran a live stream, and they said we're not shutting it down until we hit this amount of money, and I tell you what, that completely blew me away. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't ask for it.
And
It was
like my sister set one up because she said she asked, she called and asked if she could do it, or if it would be if we thought it was offensive. Like she didn't want to upset us, but she had the mindset.
I do vaguely remember that.
To know that one, we weren't financially prepared for this because there is no way to financially prepare for this, and I stopped working immediately because I knew my place was with Lee and to work on anything he needed to make sure the girls were good. And I didn't have the mindset to leave him. And we just didn't know how to make everything work. So the people who donated to us basically, whether it was the food or the actual money, whether it was in person or through a GoFundMe or the people on your YouTube friends, I don't know that they understand how important that time was. So I didn't feel like I was rushing to get you healthy, to get back at it, where I wasn't even close to being 50% ready to do that.
And I remember when you told me that your sister had set up the GoFundMe.
I
Is what
asked
it
you
was
if it
for.
was okay, and you said, I don't care that. Thank you.
And you asked me that, and I was like, whatever. And my dad had looked at me, and he goes, "Do what now?" So I told him, I said, "This is what I think she just said." And he kind of looked at me, and he goes, "Really?" Which we don't ask for money. That's not how we were raised or anything. And so, we were raised, you struggle through it, and you don't ask until it's almost too late, unfortunately.
Well, and I will say, because I'm the one who handles all of that, without that help right out of the gate, I don't know where we would have been, because I didn't have it. I didn't have it together to figure out how to move anything around and how to negotiate or how to call anybody and say, this is what's going on, can you help me? One, I didn't have time. I didn't have the brain power. And I didn't have and this sounds bad given that I just said I had all the support. I didn't have the support. I mean, there was just some things that my sister couldn't do for us.
Yeah, it's not like your sister moved in and then we had an accountant,
No,
or like that kind of support.
all of
We
our
didn't
family
have.
was still 8 hours away.
My dad was in, but he was.
It was hard for him, I think, to
I,
watch you go through it. And once you got through the brain surgery, he was like, "Okay, he's home. I'm gonna leave.
yeah, like he's gonna live. I'm out
I'm out." And
because it was a lot, and part of that was we he'd watched one of his kids suffer and die, so it's been that brought up a lot of suppressed memories
I'm sure it did.
and a lot of emotions that he's put down, and since mom had been gone for quite a while, so I'm sure it brought up more emotion than what he thought, but he knew he needed to be there, and he was. And then when it was kind of like the coast had cleared and the prognosis was good, and there wasn't nothing else that he could do because he was helping make sure the kids got around and whatever he needed to do, which he knew he wasn't going to do much.
Right.
But then he headed back to Ohio.
So yeah, I just think it's really important to mention that those people really, they saved us
Yeah.
in a way. One, we didn't know we needed saving in because we hadn't been there before.
And there's been a lot of friendships that have grown out of this.
Yeah.
There's been a lot that have became stagnant. There's been a lot that have came out of nowhere.
Well, and I
And
think I know I didn't want to face the possibility of losing you, so I was like, I'm not going anywhere. And I know that Lee's love language is not touch. That's not his first thing. Where I am, and I think, gosh, for months, wherever you sat, I just reached over and I had to touch you. Whether it was you're touching your hand, touching your side, touching your foot, I really didn't care.
and
I had to touch you.
for 20 years, I've been going to work, coming home, and I'm in a car by myself, 30, 40 minutes of a trip. So I'm not. I hadn't been a homebody, and I hadn't been one of those. So now I can't even like blink without her going, "Are you okay?" And she's like grabbing my arm. I'm like, "I'm just blinking. It's okay."
I know, and it's bad. Like, I've never been a cuddler with you. That's not how we are.
Well, I've also been on night shift for majority of our time
Maybe
married.
that's it. But like now, when we lay down to go to bed, I have to initially lay and cuddle with you for 10 minutes, and he hates it. I'm going to say he's not that person. I've made him just like, listen, I this is what I need. This is not what you need, but this is what I need. So just let me do this.
And I'm not a hand holder while you drive, and that
Oh,
drives me absolutely nuts when I got both hands on the steering wheel, and she's reaching over grabbing my arms,
and it's just
trying to intertwine, and I'm like, "Do you want to drive?"
I don't know, honey. It's just something shifted in my brain, and I just have to touch you. I know. It's because there's a shot still that I'm not going to have you here until we're 80. And I think that's it. I think I want to make sure that I have your touch. I know it. I know.
I think you're trying to rewrite an old '80s love song.
Maybe I should. Maybe that should be our next big venture.
Uh, but yeah,
But
having the people around has been amazing, um, absolutely amazing. And you see people's true colors.
yeah,
You really do. The kids have, they've had relationships come and go during this because of this, and some of their friends are like, we don't know how to deal with this, so we're just not going to talk to you. And hey, that's the way people are. Um, the girls were in swim season, so that was Peyton's senior year,
Mhm.
and
Those kids rallied.
this was. I've still got this card. They made me a card. It was about, I don't know, what is it, 18 inches tall?
It was a poster board, and they folded it in half. So there
Yeah.
you go.
And they all signed it and wrote me messages and all that. And
The
it's
entire swim season, they wore his initials. They markered them in Sharpie on their back, on their shoulders, on their leg, on their arm, on their ankles.
now this was the first time I'd not been on the swim deck or around the swim team
In 10 years.
in 10 years. So that was kind of rough. So some of these kids I've seen since I was little, and when I did make it to one, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to make it. And if you ever see a cat trying to run while it's frozen, that's pretty much how I was moving.
You could also just say you were moving like you're 90 years old. Nice
Yeah,
and slow, hunched over.
making sure that every step counted. Kind of like you're walking on ice.
Yeah.
Um, Slower than that, but uh, every move I made was deliberate when I walked at that point. And I think I carried the umbrella just as because it was raining, but I
Mhm.
carried it more as a
Support. Just
kind of a
something to kind of support and lean on.
kind of a quote unquote cane.
Yeah.
Um, just a little something to keep my mind off of my steps because I would have fell. But not really as support. But yeah, we went and saw their. I had to get a bucket hat, which
Yeah, because that was something we had to stop wearing a ball cap
yep.
because the
So
incision for the surgery was right on top of your head.
right across the back
But they
end.
wanted your head shielded from the sun,
Yep.
so
So
we got some bucket hats.
so I had to wear my new bucket hat, and we walked out, and the kids just lit up. They lit up, and even the coach was like, "Oh wow!" And I think it was the second event that we went to where I brought my chair and sat down on the pool deck, and the two assistant coaches who didn't know me, they were new, and they were like, "Who is that?" And my girls looked at him, looked at their assistant coach, and said, "That's our dad." Well, he can't be down here. And she goes, "You go tell the head coach that." And the head coach was like, "Do you need anything for your chair?"
You can sit wherever you want to sit.
So I kind of became like the mascot almost for the team
Yeah.
at that point, and which the following year I ended up getting asked to be the assistant head coach or the assistant coach.
So
So
okay, let's go back to we got you home.
okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
our next thing of order, our next piece was he needs to start therapy.
yeah. Oh,
I knew exactly who to call because this is my wheelhouse. This is where I live. So I called the only person I knew. She rehabbed him when he hurt his neck. She can put up with his moods and his grumpiness.
so in 2017 I had
The
reconstructive,
cervical fusion. You had a cervical fusion.
yeah, the C6,
C4 to C6.
C4 to C6 infusion. No,
Infusion?
fusion.
Fusion. Just a plain fusion.
It's all the same.
Um, so I called her and I said, hey, I need a favor. What does your schedule look like? And she was like, what is going on? And I told her, and she immediately is like, bring him. I will take him. Oh my gosh. And I think, she cried just, right along with me in this thing of, she saw you when you were healthy. She got you back to being healthy, and then to see you coming in and doing the work. So Lee at this time refused to wear pants. This is where his love of pajama pants began. Um, he wore pajama pants a Metallica t-shirt and his bucket hat to therapy.
I had absolutely
You had no clue. I mean,
no F's to give.
I had him in therapy. I think his surgery was on, like I said, a Tuesday. He was probably released by Friday, Thursday or Friday. And by that next Monday and Tuesday, I had his tail in therapy. Because I'm like, if there's any deficit in there, we need to start therapy right away.
And the one fellow was trying to do the evaluation, the first evaluation. I'm just looking at him like, whatever, dude. I am not following one bit. I mean, I'm a zombie. Basically,
Yeah,
I am.
because
I
I
am a
also do
zombie.
believe in like giving you all of your pain medicine. I don't harbor that. I keep, if you can have it every 4 hours, you had it every three and a half, because I was not gonna let the pain cycle get
But I
ahead of us.
but I just had my head cut open,
You did.
and I mean, I was just a walking bag of bones. So I didn't know what this guy was saying. He's like, "We're gonna do this." I'm okay.
So
I like pizza.
lay.
That's where I mean, I was out of it.
So we get in there, and luckily this lady doesn't take a lot of crap from you. The first day or two she felt bad, and she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is the condition he's in right now. I think that shocked her more than anything. And so they did the evaluation, and they're like, okay, I want you to stand up and sit down 5 times. Like, this thing should only take maybe 30 seconds. That's a standard kind of thing. And it took you like 2 minutes and something. And all you had to do was stand up. And he's like, okay, one more time. He's like, how many times do I have to do this?
I will say, for the amount that I cussed both of them,
Yeah.
they laughed probably twice as hard.
Well, they learned very quickly. Like, so,
I had no filter.
no,
And the filter I had before was very limited, but it was off. There was no thought into
no.
what was getting said. It was just said, and then it was like,
Oh.
oh, that was out loud. That should have been internal.
And luckily, she had worked with you in the past, so she knew. She's like, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to keep him away from everybody else. One, because I don't know what he's going to say. And I don't want to offend anybody else. I said, no, I think it's a good plan, just to do this over here. And I really think it was hard for you to do the therapy, because they played games. They did mind games. He hated this little puzzle.
The worst was Simon.
Simon.
Y'all remember the little Simon where you had
You push the buttons and it beeps,
yeah,
and
wherever
it lights up.
the red, yellow, green, and blue, and whichever light lit up, you had to push that button. Well, she had me playing that, and let me tell you what,
It brought joy to my life.
I absolutely hated that game.
And there was a puzzle game where he would have to look up at a cue or a key and then recreate the puzzle on the blocks, down below. Hated it.
Yeah.
He was like, these pieces don't fit. They don't fit. They don't fit. And I mean, it was humorous to a point, but it was also kind of sad that you were so worked up over this one little like piece, and all you had to do was turn it, but it took you like 10 times of hitting it in the same spot to realize it's not gonna fit. And so the way only a good wife does, you locate the puzzle, right? You locate it. And luckily another therapy friend is like, oh, I have one at home, I'll just swing it by. He wasn't amused. He wasn't amused with all of my therapy friends.
They both laughed and chuckled when they said, "Here, look what we got you." And the reaction was not what they wanted. And I don't think it's moved off the coffee table since.
But you know what? I think, again, it's showing that network of care.
Yep.
Just that network of care. I mean, therapy was tough, but she took her time with you, and you knew the value of it. You knew the importance of doing it. It didn't mean that it was easy for you. Like you hated the treadmill when they put you on that treadmill. You hated it.
Not as much as Simon.
Simon was your nemesis.
That she would. It was. I laugh at it now because she would come in and she had the lights off, and so that way because it was the lights were harsh for me
Hmm.
in the back office, and she would walk in. She'd say, "Well, how you doing?" And she'd start laughing. And she's like, "Okay, I didn't ask. I'll be back."
Yeah. I mean, I think you were at therapy 3 times a week for 6 weeks.
And they were completely amazed because I was knocking down everything that they were asking me to do, and they're like,
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 weeks probably you really struggled,
"Yeah."
which is it's common. I mean, you did just have brain surgery.
They were actually surprised at where I walked in, and then at the end of therapy, they're like, "There's nothing else we can do."
Yeah, they said, "Is there anything else you want me to work on?" And I was like, "No. If you think he's good, then let's call it. I think we're good. He's not struggling at home with anything. He's getting up and down the stairs pretty well, and let's revisit if we need to revisit." I mean, that was the big thing. I don't one think therapy is supposed to be forever, but I
Now,
think it
now
did
almost what 14, 15 months later, I'm able to walk up the stairs without the handrail.
see progress. So okay, so we did therapy, and while we're also doing therapy, we had our first meeting with Dr. A.
Yes, yes, and this,
We did.
of course, I'm still a
That's
zombie.
our oncologist.
Yep. So we had our first with this guy, and introduction to our staff, our lovely staff.
I like to call them our
Actually,
team, our
his
family.
his staff, which did an amazing job with us and keeping things straight, telling us things we didn't even know to look for.
Helping
Um,
with appointments because as we get to the here we are now and we are kind of not removed from it by any means, but we're this far along in the process that I refuse to go there for one appointment anymore. I've become high maintenance.
because where we're at, we have to drive about 25 minutes, 30 minutes into Charlotte, North Carolina. So we're
If we could ever get there in 25 minutes, I would be like hoop hoop
yeah.
hooray.
So traffic is just terrible. I mean, we have to go up into Uptown just short and hit the John Belk and take it over
It's just kind of a pain.
east.
It's just kind of a pain. So I'm always like, hey, um,
And they're all right around each other. So
is there any way we can get that appointment with this appointment with that appointment with this appointment? And our nurse, who manages all of our appointments, is so good
yeah,
at trying her very best to make it our day there rather than every day there. So, but in the beginning, I didn't know I could ask for that. See, all the things you've
yeah.
learned. In the beginning, I took every appointment they told me, whether it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whether it was two on Monday, one on Wednesday, two on Thursday, call me on Friday. I did all of that.
So when we first met with the oncologist, this guy, he was cracking jokes. He was cracking jokes, and not like against us, but like, do you know what this does?
No.
Do you know what this does?
No.
What's this?
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at him going, I don't see any cookies.
And I think I tried. There was some of it I did know, some of it I didn't know. But I think because it was so hard for you to accept that this was cancer,
Yep.
that I refused to say, yes, I know what that is. I'm like, don't know. Because
So
I wanted to make sure he explained it to you so that you understood it.
so this guy draws. He pulls out 4 color ink pens. He's got a red, a green, a blue,
And a black.
and a black, and starts drawing the body,
And all the organs.
all the organs, and just starts describing what's going on. And then like where all your lymph nodes are, where this is, where that is. And then he goes into, well, what do you know about this? About the treatment that we're talking about doing. And I was like, buddy, I got no clue. None. So he flips it over and starts breaking down cell walls.
Yeah, he did some cell
how,
walls and some enzymes
and what we're doing, what this drug's going to do, and then this drug's going to do, and then we got to medium, and then if things get out of whack, well, then we got to do this,
but
give
then
you a
he
steroid.
goes, but that's all ahead of us. We're going to start with this.
And by the time he's done talking, I mean, he looks at me and just laughs because I look like a redneck space cadet. I am zoned out. And
I think, that first appointment with him, one, he put me at ease because he's so knowledgeable, which you want for your doctor, but he's also very personable.
I remember, you remember Droopy, the cartoon, the white dog?
Yes.
That's what I remember looking at him like when he asking me questions.
I thought you were going to compare him to Droopy. I'm like, babe.
No.
Wrong answer.
That's how I remember looking at him.
Yeah, that's how you kind of did look.
I mean, I had no facial expression. My face was hanging about as low as my beard, and I was like, what?
But I think meeting him, he was the first one to talk to us even about prognosis.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, so you've done the brain surgery, good. You've done this, good. You're in therapy, good.
He was one that
he
talked.
Goes, now have they talked to you about this? And we said, no.
He talked to us and talked us through it, and not talking at us and over us.
Yes.
So that was great, and he would drop a couple little jokes, but then of course I would say something and he would just lose it.
And that's been your guys' relationship. I think we're lucky. Yep. But at that first appointment, we also met our nurse navigator, who she's there to help us when we hit a wall. And gosh, I'm glad she checks her email because I hit a wall probably once a month. And she follows up with this. And she's like, okay, well, the next stop is I want you to talk to the financial people. Okay, I don't even know what to say. Tell them I sent you. They know why you call. Okay. And these are the 2 nurses that mainly work with him. So if you send a message, these are the 2 nurses you're going to probably talk to. And this is who this person is. We're not going to overwhelm you. We'll talk more next time. So again, we collected more of those pieces of that puzzle.
And talk about overwhelmed. We were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Even with the little bit that they gave us. But they were all super nice, and they're like, even if you have to ask us the same question, just call us.
Please call us. Please ask. And they were and they are really good at answering the messages and responding,
and they helped you walk through some of the insurance paperwork.
Yeah.
Because I know we hadn't gotten into that when.
Well, and I can say that when we first met that navigator, she popped in and she's like, so tell me about your insurance. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, do you have this? And I remember almost crying and her, like looking at her crying, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And she's like, okay, what you're going to do is go home and you're going to apply for this, this, and this. Yep. And you're going to apply for this, this, and this. And you're going to check into here, here, and here. And, I think there was a little bit of pride that I had to swallow on some of this stuff. and stuff that we've never found ourselves in this position before. But, I've looked at your cancer bills and the costs of your medications, and there's no way that my pride is above getting help to pay for those.
Mm.
Like, there's no way. There's no way I could have paid for them. But we didn't know this.
We were just kind of going with the flow.
I wasn't concerned with the money part. We'll figure it out. But my concern was keeping you alive. So whatever we had to do, all right, let's do that. So I think at your first appointment, see, we're just going to bounce around a minute because all of this is wishy-washy. On our first appointment with Dr. A, after he drew everything, he said, here's the treatment I want to do. And we're like, oh, okay. And he talked to us about targeted therapy, which is basically, it can be explained as like a oral chemotherapy, but it's not chemotherapy, okay?
Yeah, so chemo for melanoma was going to be the last resort because chemo kills everything. Your immune system wiped out completely. You got to rebuild this.
And melanoma doesn't respond so well to chemo.
Right. And then the targeted, and then the immunotherapy, it basically throws your immune system into hyperdrive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Into overdrive. But it's controlled. So basically almost like giving it a turbo and NOS.
Yeah. I mean, you were super speed for a little bit.
Ooh. Yeah.
So we decided that we're going to start with this targeted therapy. He said he's had really good success with it. And if we were open to it, I'm like, buddy, if you told me to stand on my head every day for 30 minutes and that would heal him, I would have been standing on my head. Sure, targeted therapy, let's go.
I couldn't do that.
So
not just because of stitches either.
Well, I don't think I could do it, but I would certainly figure out a way to do it if that's the life or death of keeping you here. So, okay, targeted therapy, it came in a form of 2 different pills. We were going to do it for 8 weeks. Okay. Well, you can't just go to the pharmacy and get it. It had to be delivered to us. And it wasn't allowed to be outside too long because of the makeup of the medicine. And it had to come from like a specialty pharmacy. And again, this is where his nurses said, I've already called for you. The pharmacist is like, I've already called for you. And for about 3 days, we played phone tag with them, trying to get us set up with where our insurance would let us order it from and how to get it there and, when it was going to arrive. And once it arrives, what we do with it and all of that. So, I mean, it was a headache, again, because it was new. Looking back, it was probably one of the easiest things we've ever done. But the headache to getting it set up was a headache.
It seemed worse because of the emotion of everything else going on.
Yeah.
The emotion that was involved, and then you're just like, because we were we were having paperwork issues with the insurance.
With everything.
And trying to get the right things filled out for the right things, and that was
again, stuff we didn't know we had to know until we knew we had to know it.
Yep.
But we got the targeted therapy, and thank gosh for your cousin who works in this, who led me to some reputable websites to better understand these medicines and how they work. But I will tell you, I was not prepared for them. Like, nobody said to watch like me touching them or the kids touching them, because there were some.
You had to put rubber gloves on, didn't you?
There were some studies that said that sometimes that medicine could seep through, and if your hands were damp or moist or whatever, and we didn't want it to seep through to me.
I forgot about that.
So I initially got your medicines in rubber gloves, and then I put it in a shot glass.
Yep. So
That
So,
became how you took your medicine.
so she would come over with the shot glass with my cancer medicine in it,
Yeah.
and we also put in my diabetic medicine.
We just shoved everything in that glass.
So I just got it all done in one shot, and that became the kind of running joke: a cup of coffee and a shot of medicine.
Yeah, I mean, and we did that every day. So if we went somewhere, we took it with us because it had to be timed out. Like every 12 hours, you took this. Um, but again, things I didn't know. And I'm going to let everybody know. Um, on this medicine, it's gentler on his body than chemo, but it's still, like when I read about it, they're like, okay, well, when he uses the bathroom, you need to go in there and sanitize that. It's better if he just uses one bathroom. Just like in chemotherapy. That's what they recommend for people in chemotherapy. So during this, we go see your cousin, and I take wipes.
Yep.
And I Clorox their bathroom after he was done using it. You know, we were really cautious because we didn't know.
Yeah, they were. The way it was coming across was like I was toxic, like, and I'm thinking like the Toxic Man from the '80s cartoons, and I'm like, oh man, so something's gonna grow out of here, or it's gonna be like if you don't wash it right away, it's gonna turn neon green and like the Blob or something, and bleh.
Right, but like that's what all of the warnings read. And I followed up on two different things, and both of them said to make sure to sanitize the bathroom, to, you know, try to get you to use your own space, um, to really watch if you were sick, any kind of coughing or anything like that. And we did treat it in the way that it said
Mm-hmm.
that you were, for better, lack of better terms, toxic. So that changed another part of our marriage in the sense that for a while you were afraid to touch me. You were nervous because you didn't want anything that was happening inside you to escape and hurt us.
Yeah, because at this point you don't even know if it's like but you're like, can she get this from being around me? Is it gonna jump like the
Like,
flu?
you wouldn't give me a kiss even.
No.
No, you would not do that. So, I mean, that was just a change. You were very nervous about that, and making sure that we were keeping everybody safe. And, we did have to watch with this medicine because it had its own side effects. Targeted medicine was much gentler than I thought it would,
Mm-hmm.
than I thought it would be. But in those initial days, it would make you really, really sick to your stomach.
Yeah, like I didn't want to eat.
Mm-mm.
No, I wasn't hungry, but
So we had to find like the timing, and the timing was like 2 hours after you took the medicine, you could tolerate food better initially, or so many hours before.
I think it was like an hour and a half. Like if I took the medicine, I'd wait an hour and a half, then I could have something light.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more effective after 2.5 hours.
Right. And so we'd have to watch like when you could eat and when we took the medicine. And mind you, we were still every 12 hours because I'm not the best rule follower with medicine. Oh, it's close enough. This medicine I was a rule follower for
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know enough about it to test it and to kind of trick the system at all. So if we started at 6 o'clock, it was at 6 o'clock, and that meant you couldn't eat again until 8 o'clock because it made you sick.
Yeah.
And
And
I don't remember this one causing a lot of joint pain.
no, I
This
didn't.
was probably the best you felt during treatment was during your targeted therapy.
Yeah, it wasn't until after immunotherapy that I started getting
I think.
joint pains in
Mhm.
my knees, in the back of my knees. So I think it was more of my um, hamstrings, kind of that
Well,
area.
yeah, they're really tight,
Um,
so it makes sense that
but
they
but
bother you.
that's where I had a lot of my joint pains during immunotherapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would get into my knees and or into my elbows, but there was only one time where it got that bad.
And this targeted therapy. So basically, he had two medicines: Bractovia, Mectovy. Um, One of them he took six of. One, I don't know, you took two of a day, something crazy. But
And the one step down.
no, not this,
Not this one?
not this. You stayed steady all the way through the Bractovia, Mectovy, targeted medicine, the pills. That was the same all through. Um, and we've talked a little bit about the cost of this and getting help. And Levine's did a really good job with finding us help, um, because we had groups that helped to pay for the cost of your medicine. Each bottle of medicine was $2,500.
Mm, I did not know
I
that.
believe it was 25 or 32. Um, and we got grants to help cover all of that. So when we did that for 8 weeks, it
Mm.
was like, I know you got two bottles of each thing, each medicine, in all the shipments, and I think we got three shipments. So when you look at the cost of that, it might have been 32. Or, gosh, now I'm questioning if it was 25, 32, or 36. It was a number like that. It might have been 36.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, let's say it was the low end, 2,500 a bottle. We were almost $1,000. We were $1,000 every time a box came to the door. And that's where this is sad that is the situation, that we were lucky we had support, a financial support that the Living Cancer Treatment Center helped us with. Because how do you pay for $1,000 of medicine every month?
And at this point, I had no concept of money.
No,
I had no concept of anything.
and luckily, like I said, we didn't pay that. We got it at a cost of zero.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank gosh, thank gosh, thank gosh, thank gosh. Because I would have, again, done anything to make sure you had that medicine. But, oh, what a blessing we didn't have to. Because how do you look at your loved one and say, I know this is the thing that can help keep you here, but I don't have any money
Yeah.
to do that. I don't have the money. I mean, after a hospital stay and a brain surgery, and now you're back to $1,000 a month for medicine for one group of medicine. This isn't all your medicine.
Yeah, and we're not even counting the gas to get to the appointments, to the therapy, to keeping up with just the household monthly bills, the kids.
Because none of that stops.
No.
None of it stops.
It's been a hell of a ride.
It has been. I mean, we're in some ways we're a little worse for the wear, but in other ways we're a whole lot better.
Yep. I gotta say we've having that support group around, whether a lot of it was people we didn't know,
Yeah.
people
or didn't know well.
we kind of had a close friendship with. Some of our it reconnected our family,
Yeah.
our distant family.
And we've lived here since '07. We moved here in 2007, and we don't make it back home, but maybe once, maybe twice a year if it's a good year,
Yeah.
just with schedules and things like that, and the kids and your work schedule and my work schedule. And it when this happened, and our friends and our family back home learned that this is where we were, time and distance didn't matter anymore.
Yep.
People were calling and checking in. They were sending cards. they were just sending a quick text message or a Facebook message. Hey, I am so sorry. I heard this happened. How's everything going? What do you need? What can I do? And I think your cousin, he called me out. He goes, don't tell me to pray. We're already doing that. And I said, well, this is all I know to tell you to do. That's really all I know to tell you to do is to pray.
Yep. And then we got a knock on the door, and he had sent a week's worth of meal prep meals.
Yeah,
Not sure what happened with the rest of this audio, but we'll end it there. And y'all have a great week. And we will see you all next week. Or we'll talk and you'll listen to us next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.